Good afternoon. This is Patrick D. McCoy, and welcome to Across the Arts, the I Too Sing America series. This is a very special interview on this rather somber day as we examine the events of recent days in the aftermath of the death of George Floyd. I'd like to just pause for a moment of silence. Thank you so much. Just in the midst of everything that's going on, I just want to have this moment with this great artist, just to let everybody know, in spite of everything that's going on, we still have joy. And I'm honored today to welcome Kenneth Kellogg Bass to the broadcast today. Kenneth is a native of Washington, D.C., a graduate of the Duke Ellington School, has sung on many of the great operatic and concert stages. He's a favorite here, and I just want to share his story with you and let him be able to have this platform and just get insight into how he's dealing with this time. Good afternoon, kiddo. Uh-oh, I think we're muted. Let's see. There you go.
Hey, there you go. Hello, thanks for the introduction.
Thank you. I'm glad we just had to get that little moment of levity. So, Kenneth, thank you so much for being here. I know that there's a lot going on at one time. We have COVID-19 and social distancing, and now we have the traumatic events following the tragic murder of George Floyd. First of all, I know that's a lot to unpack, but first of all, I want to say before we even get to that, this interview between us is long overdue. Of course, we met, I would say, around 2009, and we did some, print things then. But it's been a little gap in between. But of course, I've been to your performances, and we've been trying to get together based on your appearances with Blue and Washington National Opera, which ended up being canceled. But let's just go back there. COVID-19, social distancing. Talk to me a little bit about that. How did you adjust, or have you adjusted to that?
I think by now I have adjusted. Yeah, it was, when it first happened, we were, just days away from opening Blue in Washington, D.C., which I'm still looking forward to. But then, it was such an important message. I couldn't just wait to bring it to D.C., and then we got the news that we were canceled the day, just a couple hours before we go into a dress rehearsal. And, I thought it would be a couple weeks. I was like, all right, a couple weeks will be good and get back to business as usual. And I came home and, the days started to get 2 weeks and then months. and it took me a while to get out of this singer mode, which, we're constantly on the go. We're trying to get to the next gig. We're trying to get the next gig. We're trying to learn the rep for the next gig. So that was my mode for the first 2 weeks, and on top of that, trying to homeschool as well. But then, I got news of cancellation, that's canceled, and it put me in a place of one, being lost, because a singer is how I identify myself, and it's what's motivated me every day, because it's such an all-encompassing art and career. So to have it taken away and there's literally nothing you can do to get on stage right now, it forced me to start looking at other things in my life that I enjoy, that I missed. I'm spending more time with my family. I've gotten into my art. I've rediscovered some things that, I had to sacrifice for music. And I'm kind of loving this period.
Thank you. Talk to me and the listeners and the persons viewing on Facebook. Talk a little bit about Blue, because Blue is very poignant, especially probably even now. The fact that it talks about many of these issues that are going on right now in this moment that we're in. Could you maybe go back to when the opera premiered at Glimmer Glass and maybe talk about that? Well, first of all, what were your initial viewpoints when you got introduced to this particular opera on this subject?
Of course. Blue came at a time when I say it came at the perfect time, because it was around the time of, hearing about Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown and Eric Garner. There were just black man after black man was being killed every other week, it seemed. And, being an opera singer at that point, traveling the world, getting to be in all these fancy places, getting to do all these things that, being a singer affords you, it felt empty. I mean, it felt disingenuous. And I felt like I wasn't being of service to something that was really important to me, which is Black lives. I felt guilty flying to Europe to sing a gig, knowing that my son could potentially be a victim at home. So I contemplated quitting opera because there was nothing in opera that was speaking to these issues. And I was frustrated, being on stage, singing Zoroastro while, Black men are being murdered in the streets. I thought about quitting opera to be of better service. I thought about a career change of going into politics, going into social service, going into therapy, just to actively help the situation. And music wasn't doing that for me. And then I got a call from Francesca Zambello, or my agent, telling me that Francesca Zambello wanted me to do something. Now, I'd said no to Francesca Zambello before. I wasn't going to do it again, So I didn't know anything about Blue. And she's like, I want you to talk to the composer. So I set up this call with Janine Tesori. I had no idea who Janine Tesori was because I'm not big in music. So we had this hour-long conversation about the subject matter of Blue, if I was interested. And then I Googled her after, I got off the phone with her. I was like, oh, that's Janine Tesori. I was like, okay, yes. And I knew Tazwell Thompson was writing libretto, and I knew his work from mathematics at WNO. So we went to a meeting, and they sat down and they gave me libretto, and I literally sunk back in my seat. Because the subject matter, it had to do with everything that was going on in my life at that point. I felt I could finally use my art to tell a story that mattered to Black lives. And, in the libretto, it talks about this fear of, a Black family having a boy in America. My son was just born not too soon before that. And my wife and I, we had those exact same conversations. So I knew Blue was a story that, one I had to tell, and one I didn't have to act. It felt like for the first time, I could really be myself on stage and tell stories that really mattered to people who looked like me. So that's my mission when I came into Blue. I began to change my perspective about the capability of opera and how it could affect people and change minds. And when we opened it in Glimmerglass, Glimmerglass is a predominantly white town in upstate New York. I would walk my son through the streets of Glimmerglass. We'd walk down to the lake every day and feed the fish and feed the ducks. After the premiere, there would literally be people in the streets that would stop me and my son and recognize us, because Jaden, he was in the show as well. He would recognize us almost in tears, telling us how poignant it was for them, how they couldn't speak when they got home. They didn't know the pain that Black families deal with when it comes to police violence. So it allowed them to empathize on a level that I don't think they've ever had to before, in an art form that they love. They go and want to see Tosca. They want to see all these things that pull at the heartstrings. I don't think they'd ever expected to see, I'm not going to call it a Black opera because it's not a Black opera. I don't think they'd ever expected to see an opera dealing with the heart and emotions of a people that they don't normally consider on a daily basis. White people, we really have to think, when I say we, they really have to think about the emotional impact on Black people. They really do. There's no reason for them to. But when you go into the opera house for an art that you love, most opera lovers go to the opera house because it's an art that they love and they feel. And you're confronted with that subject matter in an art form that you normally associate with white issues. And you feel that impact. Blue was really special to me, and I think it's special in that sense.
Sometimes there's a misconception in the Black community that there's not a strong father figure. And I know that we have different scenarios that sometimes you have the father present, sometimes you may not for whatever circumstance. Could you go a little bit more in detail, the fact that your son was involved in this opera with you on the stage? Could
Yeah.
you maybe parallel to how maybe your relationship with your father and the things that you may have seen and really appreciated more as you look down at your son in this opera with you?
Of course. Well, my father was absent. I didn't have a father. I was raised by a single mom.
Mm.
I think I knew my father, but he wasn't a real parental figure and he wasn't around that much. Um, so I knew when it came time for me to be, accept the role as a father and step up as a father. I mean, not step up, like I'm married, like we're happily married all the way. So coming, into fatherhood, it's almost this thing of like, I know what I didn't have, so I know everything I'm gonna give.
Mm.
And being a father is one of the most important roles in my life. And it wasn't even my idea to have Jaden be a part of the show. So I accepted the role in Tazwell. We talked about it quite a bit. And he, being the director, he remembered a picture I posted of like me holding Jaden as a father. And he's like, that is the picture that I want to represent fatherhood in this show. When I think of fatherhood, that is the picture that comes to my mind. So, they asked me, me and my wife, if they could use that photo for, artwork for the show. So I talked to my wife about the implications of it. Do we want Jaden's face attached to this opera for the rest of his life? We talked about the implications of it, and it was something that we agreed to do. And I think it was later on. He's like, we were in rehearsals, and there's a scene where like the son's an infant, then it automatically jumps to the son being a teenager. And in rehearsals, we felt like it was so abrupt, and there was no transition from being an infant to being a teenager. Janine and Tazwell thought there could be an interlude where you could see the son as a toddler. And I had a toddler. I had my actual son was someone who fit the age group and who could play that role. So Tazwell was like, that picture and that connection you have with your son is what I want in this opera. So, they asked if Jaden could be in the show.
Wow. I want to kind of go a little bit backwards because we have many experiences that form us, and especially as we move into our professional careers. Talk to the audience about the role of Duke Ellington, and how did you find your voice and know, hey, I want to be a singer?
Yeah, I honestly I didn't find that at Duke Ellington. Actually, what Ellington did for me was, so growing up, I always sing in elementary school choirs. Carolyn Glover. Like I had this debate a while ago. I don't know any musician in DC that hasn't come through Carolyn Glover's fingers, who hasn't been associated with her. She was my music teacher in elementary school. And she just infused this love of music from a very early age. So from elementary school, I was always, this awkward kid that I love basketball. I did all of those things. Like I did play sports. I did all of those things. There was always this quirky side of me that loved music, So when time came for me to go to high school, my mom knew of Duke Ellington, and she also knew of the dangers of being on the streets in the 80s and 90s in DC. So in Ellington, you're in school from 8:30 to 5 o'clock. She's like, all right, you're auditioning to go to Duke Ellington. You have some modicum of talent. You're going. So I auditioned for Ellington, and I had known Sam Bums because I was in the boys choir when I was in elementary school. So it wasn't totally foreign to me to go over to Georgetown to be a part of Ellington. But when it came time for me to go to high school, my mom was like, go audition. I sang for Sam Bonds. I sing in choirs, but I wasn't like a musician, and I didn't have any songs prepared for my audition to Ellington. And Sam was like, I kind of know you, just sing Happy Birthday, And that was my audition to get into Duke Ellington School of the Arts. When I got there, what was so formative for me was, one, like coming from my area of DC in Northwest DC, seeing, drug addicts walking down the street, seeing things that like, were prevalent in DC at that time, a lot of negativity. Going over to Georgetown was like this oasis of, wow, like life can be like this. Duke Ellington sits in the middle of one of the wealthiest parts of DC. So I catch the bus over every day. And it almost gave me this sense of, okay, I don't have to live that life. Like I can go to another side, just another side of town and feel different about myself. I can carry myself with a different air. And in the classrooms, I was also amongst my peers who also had this quirky thing as kids. We were all in one place and we could all really just be ourselves and enjoy our arts and make arts and express. So when I left Duke Ellington and went back to my neighborhood, it's like, all right, here comes that singing kid again, So Ellington was this haven of expression that I still carry today. So I'm a musician. I'm a professional opera singer, but I'm not one of these singers that could tell you like, oh, that's Leontine Price when I hear her. Oh, that's like Marie. Like that's not me. Like I love opera from the point of expression, and I got that from Ellington.
Wow. Now you mentioned Carolyn Glover, who I definitely knew, the late Carolyn Glover, and I know her son James Glover. I reminisced early today about a concert that she put together at the Church of the Redeemer Presbyterian. And I was sharing with everybody, if you don't mind, I said, even though I'm older than Kenneth, I said, I feel like Kenneth Kellogg is my big brother because here he is like 6'5". And it made me really think about that concert that Carolyn Glover orchestrated. If I'm not mistaken, Stanley J. Thurston played for you all, but it was you, Kevin Thompson, and Solomon Howard. And it was a wonderful program because there was no ego, and both of you, well, all three of you guys are 6'5", and you have this larger than life presence, but there's a gentleness that I always feel when I'm around you all. Could you maybe talk about, I know that was a long time ago, but could you maybe just talk about the whole aspect of brotherhood in this art form and how you connect with maybe people that you might consider as mentees or people that you're mentoring?
Yeah, of course. I mean, being a singer is, one, it's a very solitary career. It's a very solitary art form because often you're in the practice room by yourself, working on music, working on notes. When you get with a pianist, like there's some level of collaboration, but most of the work is done by yourself in the studio. On top of that, there are not a lot of Black singers, not a lot of Black male singers. When you get out into the larger world of opera, so you tend to find when you find brothers in opera, you find brothers that you can connect with and who do what you do and understand that thing better than anyone else can understand. Like a lot of my friends outside of opera, we're great, we're friends, but they don't get like all of the intricacies that happen in the field. That's something you can only understand when you're in it. So when you get, Solomon Howard, when you get, Kevin Thompson, I can call them up and like, how are you dealing with this? like, what are you doing? Like, how did you get that step? Like, how, like, they get it because they're in it. And it's very few people who understand it on the level unless they do it. So that brotherhood is very tight. I'll call Solomon or I'll call Kevin, or I have a couple other, Black singer friends that I'll call just because they get it. There's no need for explanation. There's no need for, they get it.
Wow. If you don't mind, I want to kind of start interspersing some questions because they're coming in, and I think that'll be a good use of our time together. And some people who may be getting introduced to you for the first time, it'll be a good thing. So you have a question here from Stephen Mark Baudouin, who's the executive director of the Washington Chorus, which of course is one of our major symphonic choirs here. He's asking, so what is the future of Blue given the pandemic? Is there any chance that excerpts might be shown?
So there are companies dying to do Blue. I mean, I was just on the phone with folks at Washington National Opera. It's on their priority. I mean, it's a priority for them to get it back. And whenever they get back, they're planning on next season. You know, from the email I got, Blue is a high priority. And I think Minnesota is planning on doing it. Chicago's planning on Chicago Lyric Opera still, and their production got canceled. They're planning on doing it. So it's people are dying to do it. It's just a matter of when we can get back to work as usual. I mean, I think the cast now are working on releasing some excerpts because it's so pertinent to the time. And it needs to be heard. I mean, I've gotten several emails from, newspapers, like what's happening with Blue? When is Blue going to be heard? It needs to be heard. We want to do it. It's just a matter of, can we do it safely?
When you said that it may happen in Minnesota, I'm just trying to even fathom.
Yeah, it's funny. That's something I didn't even think about.
Yeah, I'm just trying to even fathom the emotional weight, even though it might be removed from this moment that we're experiencing now. You know how sometimes you just have a song or an experience, and even though it happened a little bit removed from the moment, when it comes back again, it's more poignant than ever before. So I'm getting myself all worked up.
Actually, that's what you want. That's what you want from art. I always say, when I leave the theater, like, I want to feel something. Like, I want to be either happy, I want to be like, I don't care if I'm crying. I don't care if I'm miserable leaving the theater. Like, I want to feel something. If I'm not feeling anything leaving the theater, like, it was pointless to me. So I don't care. Like, I don't care if I'm like a mess when I leave the theater.
Wow. You have a few of your colleagues on here. Soprano Karen Slack, Pamela Simonson, Aaliyah Waheed, Stephen Costello, Kenneth Overton, Dana Anderson, who's the executive director of the Heritage Signature Chorale. You have a few people here, and the list goes on and on. So I want to go back now, since we're kind of in the vein of opera. Talk to me about your introduction to. I know that of course, you're from here, but it's a little bit different when you leave and then come back. I think the reception is always different when you leave home and return as a professional. Talk to me about maybe one of your first experiences when you got a chance to sing with Washington National Opera. How did that feel, being able to be on the big stage at home?
It's humbling, one, because going to an art school, the Kennedy Center was right down the street for one. And then being in the choir, like, you'll go and you'll do backup for, people who come in to the city. Like, so you get a chance to be on stage, but it's always behind. And I never thought I would have a career in opera. I never start out to be an opera singer, really. So to get to be on the stage at the Washington National Opera, one is very humbling. And like, I'm thankful. Like, I guess the biggest thing is I can say that I'm thankful for it. I mean, art for me is an expression in the end. And for people to, one, want to hire me to get on their stage to express something, it's humbling.
You've, of course, done recitals, you've done other concerts. I think one of the most memorable performances that I really put in the hallmark of my concerts with you is when you had the opportunity to sing the Heightened Creation with the Cathedral Society. And if I'm not mistaken, that was your first concert with the late J. Riley Lewis. Would you mind just talking about a little bit about working with him and his demeanor and his impression on you?
It's funny because I will get to that, but my bus route from my neighborhood to Georgetown, like, I would catch the 30 bus down Wisconsin Avenue, and I passed the cathedral every day. And being from DC, and you see all of the the presidential funerals, you see all the engagements, they all happen in that National Cathedral. And I remember vividly seeing Denise Graves sing in there all the time. And
Mm.
Denise Graves also went to Duke Ellington,
Yeah.
So when I first got, the offer to sing in that building, I can't tell you like what went through my body, but there was something. There was a feeling of okay, Denise Graves sung here. Like presidents have been buried here, so you feel like you're stepping into shoes that are far bigger than yours, and you're just thankful to be in that place and to follow that spirit into that place. And working with Jay Riley, like he loved music, like he was a great leader. Like I was saying, we didn't rehearse that much because he had a lot of trust in the people that he hired to do the job. I think we maybe had 2 rehearsals. It's like, okay, I trust you. If I made a mistake, I trust you to get it right. He trusted us. And he loved making music with people and loved that collaboration effort. And his spirit was always effervescent and positive.
Just going back to your concert experiences and your operatic roles, you've had a variety of, forays into different composers, whether it's Mozart, whether it's Verdi. So you're very diverse in that regard. Could you maybe talk about your experience with Champion?
Champion, oh yes. So Champion, so Opera Parallel asked me to do Champion. I had no idea really. Like I knew it was performed in, St. Louis, but I hadn't seen the score. And when they asked me to do it, I was like, sure, I think it's a baritone role, but like, let me look at it, And it was high as hell. Like the role. And luckily, like I'm one of those singers. For me, it's like, can I do it? Like, can I accept that challenge? And I got a couple months. Like, can I stretch myself? But then I started to read the story, and I started to read about Emil Griffith and him being gay, but not being able to be open about it, and also being a welterweight champion. I say singing for me is ultimately expression. Like that's what I love about it. And I knew that that was a story that, like, if you're gonna let me tell it, like I don't know how well I'll tell it, but if you're gonna let me tell it, like I want to. So I stretched myself. Vocally to be able to tell that story. And it was a challenge because dealing with subject matter that's foreign to me, like I don't know what it's like to be a gay man. And like it worried me because in the scene or in the score, there is a scene, there's an interlude where he's in this setting with another gay man who's approached him in a bar. And I had to ask myself, as a straight man, can I allow myself to go where this needs to go to tell this story? And all your macho insecurities and all your ego, it's like, I'm not gonna play a gay man. But then I started to think of, okay, this is a human being. Love is love. I can't express being an ally to my gay friends and not being able to really step into their shoes and feel what it's like as an actor even. So it's like, yes, like I will allow myself to be vulnerable, to expand my capacity beyond my own ego and go there. So when I got to rehearsals for Champion, I talked to the directors, like, I don't know what you have planned. Like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about comfort levels. I talked with the other actor, and I literally just let myself go to be able to tell a story that I felt was really important. And Champion is probably one of the best. It's funny, I have a poster of it hanging in my studio. It's probably one of the best artistic experiences I've had because it was the first time that, I got to tell a story of a Black man. And it was the first time I really got to dig into a character beyond my own comfort level.
Well, I must give a shout out to Karen Slack because she just interviewed Terrence Blanchard on her Kiki conversation.
I saw that.
So shout out to Karen Slack. So she had a sit down with him and his lovely wife. So that was wonderful. Now I want to go back to something that you just mentioned, if you don't mind. Um, because I think it's very often that people will pair sexuality to an art form or a certain thing, or if you're a male musician, you have to be, gay,
Right.
because you're a musician. So, if you don't mind, because I'm sure that there are a lot of artists, particularly male artists, who kind of struggle with that. What would you say to them in terms of being, I guess, open and authentic in that regard?
Into as far as them being gay, or as far as being open and honest with
Just
whomever?
the fact that you're trying to communicate the art form, you're not concerned about all of the other stuff.
Of
If that
course. I
makes
mean, for me, I mean, being an artist is, I mean, you have to be really 100 authentic with yourself to really dig into the things that you want to express. And I often find that when I'm uncomfortable in a situation, I can't really express myself. So therefore, the art isn't really genuine. So I just say, be yourself. Everyone has their difficulties. Everyone has their challenges. Every ego matters or doesn't matter. Um, Being yourself is the most authentic thing you can be. And as an artist, authenticity is what we ultimately want, because we can see through everything else.
Now, talking about your home life, talk about your wife, and because I'm sure people like to know that little stuff. Like, how did you guys meet, and what's her? How is she receptive to you being an opera singer?
So luckily, my wife, Megan, like we met at San Francisco Opera, actually. She was in a production of Porgy and Bess, and I was an Adler Fellow there. And I wasn't in the productions, but like I saw her and I hung around rehearsals just to keep my eye on her. But it helps that she is a singer. She's a trained singer as well. She doesn't sing so much anymore. But there is that understanding, and there's an understanding that when I have to travel, I have to be away. I have to spend a lot of time working on music. And she respects it. But in turn, I try to give her the same respect with communication, and she travels to wherever I am. If I'm gone too long, we have kids, so they travel with us as well. We try to make the career work, and communication ultimately is key. So I try to keep her involved, and if a gig comes up, and I make sure things are okay at home before I accept the gig. We'll talk about schedule, we'll talk about what's comfortable for her, and I'll make it work based on what's going on at home. Home is always first for me.
I know that's right. You have a question here. How do you spend your time during this time where live performances are put on hold? And are you singing virtually?
For me, singing virtually it doesn't feel authentic. And there's something I love. I mean, what I love about opera is, being in the room with live, breathing people to collaborate with, that energy you get back from being on stage. I mean, there's definitely an energy that you get with the audience. And that's what I love. Like I said, I keep going back to music as ultimate expression for me. You can only feel that reciprocated when there's a person there in the room. Mm-hmm. So I tried, when COVID hit, I was like, all right, like I gotta sing, I gotta produce content, I gotta get a camera because everybody else is like online doing this thing. So I tried it, I got a new laptop, I went out and bought the microphone, I got a ring light, like set up my home virtual studio, But as I was recording, like it just didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel like I was making music. And I was halfway through a recording and my dog barked. I was like, fuck, like I have to do it all over again, It's like that's not making music to me. That's not sharing. That's not being, not to knock what anybody else is doing, because I know we have to do what we have to do. But for me, it just didn't feel authentic. And I do it, like I have done, like I'm working on a couple of things, but I had to realize why I was doing it. Like I initially wanted to do it because I felt like I needed to be heard. Like if I'm not being heard, then I'm going to get left behind in this career. Like nobody's going to remember me. I'm not going to get hired when we get back. Like that's why I was doing it. Like my ego was telling me that I needed to stay relevant. but then I just had to tell my ego to shut up, and
Mm.
like we're all out of work. You know, it's funny. I realized this thing. It's like, oh, I got to sing for that person. I got to send an email to that person. Let me send this, that person this recording. And then I sat back and I realized, that person's not working either. So why?
Mm.
Why? Like just enjoy the break, enjoy life, and like enjoy those things that you had to sacrifice. And when we get back to work, we'll get back to work.
Charleston Uplift is on, and he mentioned that you all were at school together at Ohio University.
Who is that?
Charleston Uplift.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But that's a good segue for me. Talk about your undergraduate experience. And I know that when we were talking about Ellington, you were saying how you weren't necessarily one day when you were auditioning a whole bunch of prepared songs or whatnot. But when you got to Ohio University, were you a music major in the beginning, dedicated music major? How did it all happen, and how did you really kind of matriculate through the program?
So yeah, I did go in as a music major. There was funny. Something happened that at Ellington on the day of graduation from Duke Ellington School of the Arts. Like Sam Baum was my teacher at the time, and like I hadn't applied for scholarships to major in music because I wasn't going to major in music. And from what I understand, he went to Peggy Cooper Kieferts, the late Peggy Cooper Kieferts, and had a talk with her and told her that this kid has talent. He needs to major in music. He didn't apply for any scholarships. So Peggy Cooper Kieferts is up announcing scholarship awards for graduates. And the last award of the night was, this Mama I Want to Sing award. And it was an impromptu scholarship that she came up with for me to send me to school for music. Like I could have the scholarship, but the only stipulation was that I had to major in music. And that kind of like pushed me in that direction of going to music. And it's funny because my whole career has been that kind of thing. I love a lot of things, and I've always been kind of okay at music. I mean, a lot of other people have seen my talent before I had, and they kind of like guided me and pushed me in that direction until I really caught on. It's like, okay, I can do this. Like I've tried to quit music so many times, but it's something that I love the challenge of. I'm a quiet guy. I'm a very shy person, I've been told. But when it comes to singing, like I'm a totally different person.
Wow. So you mentioned that you have an aversion to a lot of different things, a lot of areas. That's something that I've been paying attention lately that I'm sure that a lot of people have been paying attention to is your wonderful drawing. Oh my goodness. Talk about how did you learn to draw like that? Because I know the one picture that you drew is the famous one where you see all of the lashes on the person.
Yeah. Right.
And could you maybe talk a little bit about the depth of that and what moved you to draw such a moving, a probing piece?
Of course. So I've loved art ever since I was a kid. I've always drawn, just for fun. It's funny, when I was at Ellington is a school of the arts, so they have all of these different fields, with visual arts being one. By the time I got to my senior year, I had done all the coursework for music, and I'd done it all for academics. So I had all my credits. So I had extra time. So they let me major in like visual arts my senior year in high school. So I was the first person at Ellington to both have like a music major and a visual arts major. So there's always been a love for art. And this particular piece that you're talking about, it's funny because during that period of like not really knowing what to do and trying to do everything in music to stay relevant, like I was practicing, hours and like looking at scores and studying scores, not really knowing when we would get back to being able to make music for the public. And it felt empty. It felt empty, not knowing when it would happen. I started to get a little lost and depressed. And then I sat for a couple of days and I really thought about, what makes me happy. And art was always one of those things that I could go to as a haven and a release for some level of expression. So once I realized that, I hopped up and went to the art supply store. I loaded up on a couple $100 worth of supplies and started making art. And there's a colleague who, and I had posted a couple drawings online before. There's a colleague who was like, I want you to do this picture for me. And it's like, oh, all right, sure, why not? And it was his idea, actually. It was his idea to do that particular picture. And I started it before the Eric Floyd incident, or the George Floyd incident. And through that piece, I found some level of being able to release, being able to release this rage that I was feeling, being able to release, the anger and the pain, all of these things I was able to release through drawing that picture, just because of the history that went along with it. And I had seen the picture throughout history. I had seen it over and over again, but I never really researched what it meant or what the significance of it. So once I did that and found out that the picture's called Whipped Peter, and he escaped slavery, went to the North and joined the army, and that picture, the scars on his back was impetus for the Civil War. It was proof that the South wasn't just fighting for economy. It was literally about owning slaves and owning people. So there were nights I would cry with a pencil in my hand, realizing this history and seeing the recent incidents in my head.
It's powerful. I want to go back to this whole theme of community, because something else I saw in your trajectory when you were here in preparation for Blue. Talk about that experience you had when you saw yourself on the side of the city bus.
On the bus, man, that was a little surreal. It's funny because my niece sent me a picture of it first. And I was like, wow, that's insane. Being a kid from DC, you never imagine seeing yourself on the side of a bus. And the really trippy part was I saw it on the E4 bus. The E4 bus, or any E2 bus, is the bus that I used to catch from my neighborhood going over to Duke Ellington. So all of these, these moments started to connect the dots from, being a kid to going to Ellington, to, fighting so hard to be, a singer and, to get to the stages across the world. All those things started to connect the moment I saw my picture on a bus that I used to drive or to ride to Georgetown to go to Ellington. I mean, it felt like a full circle ride for me.
Wow. If you would indulge me, because I know a lot of people, they're hearing your resonant, robust bass voice. And I'm still learning this, so I hope that everybody will bear with me. But I would like to share this clip that I have of you singing this Mozart aria, just to give the people just a little bit, not to give too much. Hopefully with COVID-19, they can go buy the ticket and they can get the full glory of Kenneth Kellogg. But I do want to try to make an attempt and do this. I think it is going to work. I hope. Let's see.
How old is this recording?
Oh Lord. Just give it a little bit. I don't think,
just a little bit.
I think it looks like it disappeared. So that might be your saving grace, because I'm trying to find the
hey, it's out there, man. I don't like.
Yeah,
hey,
it is. I had the link all prepared, and that must have been an intervention. Let's see. Oh, there it is. All right, let's try it now. So this aria is In Diesen Heiligen Hallen, Mozart.
Yeah.
And hopefully I will be able to share this with no issue. It takes a while for the sound to catch up. So let's see, compare sound. And you all let me know if you can hear this. So does it sound okay? Can you all let me know if the I'm not getting any. I'm assuming they can.
Oh boy.
Bravo. Bravo.
Oh, thank you. It's funny, I never really listened to myself.
Most musicians say that. So talk to me about, I kind of alluded to earlier on, you've sung a variety of composers and various operatic roles. How did something's still going on. Hold on, I'm sorry. It's like I still hear something playing. Oh, I did. Oh. Sorry about that.
No,
What I was about to say is that you perform a variety of different composers. Could you maybe, especially if you have singers on here, how do you approach when you're learning a different period or a different style? Do you approach it the same way? Talk about your process, how you embody a different style of a particular composer.
You know, I think one of the benefits and backdraws of being a bass in a young artist program is that one, there's not a lot of you. At least when I was in young artist programs, there's not a lot of you, and there's probably only one of you. So anytime something slightly baritone-ish comes up, it's like, oh, like let's give it to him. Like if there's a baritone part and there's no baritone in the program, like you're gonna sing it. So it forced me to try a lot of rep. It forced me to try a lot of things that, you know, a Rossini tenor can't do. You know, a Rossini tenor can't explore much because their voice is that, and that's what it does best. But being a lower voice, especially in my young artist experience, I constantly had to sing stuff that, you know, may not have been right for me at the time. But it forced me to be adventurous and to explore. And I take that approach to how I work on music now. I mean, if I get an opportunity or someone asks me to sing something, like I'll look at the score. But I'm always up for a challenge, you know? Like I'll figure out how to make it work with my mechanism. Like my technique doesn't really change based on the repertoire. What changes for me is how I want to express it. And I find a way. I mean, I find with, you know, the expression of a piece, my technique automatically finds a way to do it.
I hope my next question is not a silly one, but I guess I'm always thinking different things. Has there ever been a time where, I know I asked you the question about the style and so forth and so on, but has there ever been a time where, you know, whether you felt you could sing or not, they offered you, or whatever the organization, where they offered you a nice coin or a nice check?
Oh,
and
yeah,
that might have been like the motivation to say, hey, it's better to accept this because I know I'm gonna get, you know, substantial pay, as opposed to, oh, I'm not gonna say this because it's not stylistically right for me.
Yes, especially when I was younger. You know, when you're younger and you're thinking about the money, it's like, all right, like whatever. Before, yeah, I mean, when I went to Japan, I think it was Japan, you know, they asked me to do a Bach Christmas oratorio and Messiah. I was like, yes, of course. I mean, I think it was my first Messiah, actually. And I sung the chorus parts, of course, coming up, you know, in choirs and stuff. It was my first time doing the solo. So I didn't know really, you know, how difficult it was. But that check was so sweet. Like I couldn't say no, you know. So I think one night we did the Bach Christmas oratorio, which is high. I mean, it's Bach, you know, and I managed it. And then the next night we did the Messiah, and we got to that aria. That aria. And you know, I was in the middle of it. I was like, this is not gonna work. But like, I'm on stage in front of an audience, and I had to figure it out. There are a couple sections. Luckily, it was Handel, and it was a second verse. I got to, you know, add some things to save my butt that I hadn't planned on. But yeah, I didn't do Messiahs for a long time after that, because I knew it wasn't an experience that I couldn't really fully express myself and be comfortable. So I avoided Messiah for a long time because of that experience.
You know, the unique thing about Messiah is that, you know, you have some arias that are definitely bona fide bass arias, and then you have some arias that are baritone arias. And so sometimes the person who's cast as the, you know, quote unquote bass, you have the responsibility of basically executing the baritone and the bass arias.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes not in consideration that it's a little bit high, you know,
yeah. As a young bass, like I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. That trumpet show sound.
Oh my goodness. Well, our time is just about up, Kenneth. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for being willing. And I'd like to just to say again, you know, this chat is long overdue. We've been trying to get this together. I think the most recent time I saw you was at the University of Maryland for the opera showcase, and you were a judge, and I moderated under the auspices of the Coalition for African Americans in Performing Arts. I think that was probably one of the last times that I saw you. But it's been so good to chat with you. And just as we wrap up, are there any final thoughts? I know this has again been a heavy time, and I just want to thank you for just sharing this moment with me during such um, a dark hour. But I thought it would be appropriate because you have such a wonderful story. You're a Black father. You're navigating this, and what's maybe like a parting thought that you would want to share as it relates to um, the temperature, for lack of better words, in the arts community during this season of COVID-19, and maybe just moving ahead to this moment we're in right now with George Floyd, and just talk whatever you want to share at this moment.
Oh, that's heavy. I mean, that's really heavy, and that's a whole another hour-long conversation.
I have the pro account, so we could go.
It's big because I mean, Black singers. I mean, Black people in America have suffered for years, and we've screamed and hollered and burned and rioted and looted generation after generation, and we've done all of it to be heard. And I mean, I think this is another reiterance of that. We want to be heard. But what do we want them to hear is the question I ask, you know? I mean, I think America has such a history that our fates are intertwined. Unless we're going to fully separate from each other, our fates are intertwined. And we have to find a way to make it work. Be it, white people finally understanding our pain and letting up, taking the knees off our necks, letting up and letting us breathe a little bit. And us, it's hard. I mean, I can't say tamper that anger, but us screaming and being vocal about what we really want. I mean, it goes beyond respecting me. It goes beyond hearing me. It goes beyond seeing me. What we really want is the power to control our own destinies. And we can't, if an opera company, like, okay, we'll hire you. We'll hire you. We'll put you on our stage. I mean, we really still aren't in the driver's seats. We'll always be subject to some decision that's not ours. So there needs to be a balance. And right now there's a lot of anger in the opera community. Black singers are starting to be as vocal as protesters about our particular field because we have been slighted. And do I say it's the fault of opera companies? Yes and no. I think it's there's not an institution in America that's not racist because it's just the foundation of opportunity in this country. It's the foundation of opportunity is racism, So, like I said, this is a long conversation. I can talk hours and hours and hours. I'll just say, easily, I'll say that our fates are ultimately intertwined. And we have to find a way to make it work. And anger right now is that way. But after the anger has to come some real solutions.
Thank you. I want to close with this poem for whom this series is named, I Too Sing America by Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this very special conversation with bass Kenneth Kellogg. Kenneth, it has been an honor. And again, I can't express enough my appreciation for having this time with you. And so many people have been on here and we're about to run out of time. But I just want to thank you all for supporting this interview. Again, I am Patrick McCoy, and this is Across the Arts on the I Too Sing America series. Thank you all so much.